Hi, welcome to Mama's Natural. I'm your host, Rusty Red, and this segment I'm going to be going a little bit over low iron and kind of what to look for with that. So let me pull up my webpage here. I'm going to be going off of the Mayo Clinic's website on children health with low iron. I may add a few details that I've learned from other research as well as some facts on adult iron intake. So the first main thing here is, why is it important that we watch our children's iron? Iron is so important not only for children but for adults. With children, it's very important for the growth, but its main thing that iron does is, let's read it right here actually, right off the website. Why is iron important for children? Iron helps move oxygen from the lungs to the rest of the body and helps muscles store and use oxygen. If your child's diet lacks iron, he or she might develop a condition called iron deficiency. Iron deficiency in children is a common problem. It can occur at many levels, from mild deficiency all the way to iron deficiency anemia, a condition in which blood doesn't have enough healthy red blood cells. An untreated iron deficiency can affect a child's growth and development. So, as someone who is kind of chronically iron deficient and kind of on and off anemic, iron deficiency is not a fun thing to deal with. It can cause all kinds of hosts of problems. I've had to be on supplements. It was actually giving birth to my son that put me onto the idea that I had chronic iron deficiencies. After he was born, I was so anemic, but I had tore so bad we didn't think much of it. But later, we just continued with the host of problems. And I'm like, with these problems, they weren't a big deal before having children, but now that I have children, I don't have the time to do the things I would normally do to reset and try to help with my iron deficiency. So I used to sleep a lot, which can be kind of an iron deficiency problem, as you are so low on oxygen getting everywhere that you're just tired and lightheaded a lot. And I didn't really think much of it. Looking back on it, I really should have picked up on it, but is what it is. So the main thing that I struggled with was anytime I would get on iron supplements, they would cause all kinds of other problems as well. So before I digress onto that, the first big question we need to ask is how much iron is needed in children. So if we look here on the page, the Mayo Clinic page, it says 7 to 12 months, 11 milligrams, 1 to 3 years, 7 milligrams, 4 to 8 years, 10 milligrams, 9 to 13 years, 8 milligrams, 14 to 18 years in girls, 15 milligrams, 14 to 18 years old in boys, 11 milligrams. Now that's interesting. I always knew that iron was important. I didn't realize that at a certain age we need more of it as women than the boys. That's very interesting. I'd be curious to look that up and find out why. So who's at risk of iron deficiency? One of the main things to think about is when you're pregnant and growing a baby, if you have low iron as is, which I didn't realize it did when I first got pregnant, it can cause chronic low iron in the baby too. My son was born with good iron, but apparently he just doesn't have enough iron in his system. I was not able to give him enough through breastfeeding. He kind of robbed it all from me during pregnancy, and then when I started breastfeeding, I wasn't getting enough in my system because I didn't know I wasn't getting enough of myself. So women that just gave birth are prone to low iron. And so that can also pass into the babies. But let's see this. Infants and children, highest risk for iron deficiency. Babies born prematurely or have a low birth weight. I looked that up. What is considered a low birth weight? It is babies weighing 5.8 ounces or 5 pounds 8 ounces or less is what's considered a low birth weight. And even some children that can be a little bit higher than the low birth weight can still be kind of high risk for it. Babies who drink cow's milk or goat's milk before age 1, which I'm assuming they're meaning just straight milk, not formula, because formula they usually fortify with extra iron. Which personally I would never really give a child cow's milk or goat's milk before age 1 anyway, just because if they're still on formula, they don't need it. If they're still breastfeeding, they don't need it. You can just give them water and keep them on either their breastfeeding or their milk If you're planning on partially weaning before age 1, there are some things that you might need to add to your child's diet, or specifically design your child's diet to make sure they're getting everything that they need. But really, cow's milk and goat's milk really don't contain what our children need. If you think about it, I'm not going to sit here and overly knock cow's milk and goat's milk, but if you look at it, it's really not designed for us. Cow's milk is designed for cows, goat's milk is designed for goats, human breast milk is designed for humans. And while we look at what's in a cow's milk, what is it designed to do? What do cows mainly do? They build up big, hefty, strong, and fast. And that's what their milk is designed to grow, not so much of the intelligence side of things. Goat's milk is better because it's closer formulated to breast milk with humans, but it's designed for a goat's growth and developmental needs, whereas humans, we are so primarily dependent on our brain development more than our bodies. And then you start looking at supplementing your own milk or formula specifically designed to replace human breast milk. You're now getting away from what's been added to the formula or what our breast milk's designed to do for us. So I personally would just kind of stay away from that altogether before age 1. My son has never even actually tasted milk of any kind besides my own. We just went to water, and then if he wants milk, we do have a little bit of almond milk, or if I happen to pump some extra milk, I will give him a little glass of my milk. So I just would kind of avoid milks before age 1 anyway, for other reasons as well. Breastfed babies who aren't given complementary foods containing iron after age 6 months. Personally, I don't exactly agree with that. If you're going to stay breastfeeding till age 1, if that's a goal that you have or you're able to do that, then you should be getting what you need in your diet, which means then that your baby should not be needing extra stuff. Otherwise, they would need iron supplements before 6 months. Why would that change at 6 months? Unless you are starting to give other foods and they're not containing iron, those foods are going to take up space in baby's tummy, meaning baby's not going to get as much breast milk from you. So that will automatically lower their iron intake. So when they are starting solids, you want to try to get them onto some iron, foods that contain iron. So if you are just exclusively breastfeeding past 6 months and they still aren't even tampering with maybe a little slice of banana once a day, don't really need to go for an iron supplement or adding iron foods containing iron at that point. So that's my take. If you want to, this is the Mayo Clinic, so this is your decision on what you want to pay more attention to. The website here or some of my opinions that I've developed. So babies who drink formula that isn't fortified with iron. I didn't think that there was formula that wasn't fortified with iron. I'm assuming you can make your own formula, by the way. They have recipes you can get online for how to make from scratch your own formula, which personally, if I was going to do formula, I would try, if at all possible, to pull that off. But at that point, then yes, you absolutely need to be paying attention to what's going into your homemade formula and make sure they are getting their appropriate amounts of iron. Children ages 1 to 5 who drink more than 24 ounces of cow's milk, goat's milk, or soy milk a day, which is, I find it interesting, though, that it's when they're drinking this kind of milk, an excessive amount of this milk, they're higher risk for iron deficiency. But again, I personally, I don't even drink dairy. Eventually we're planning on getting goats, and I'll be adding that to our diet here and there, just in small amounts. But if you're sticking to like your waters and iron-rich foods, you shouldn't have a problem with it. Unless you have some medical condition that's making you chronically prone to low iron. But then you might just have to up your food intake of iron-fortified foods. So children who have been exposed to lead. Okay, so there would be one of those out of normal cases. I don't really know what all kinds of situations would expose children to lead, but I would have other concerns along with that as well. So keep that in mind. If you know your child's been exposed to lead, be paying attention to their iron. Maybe see about getting their iron checked. Children who don't eat enough iron-rich foods. That's kind of an obvious one. And children who are overweight or obese. which I guess that could make sense, because then when you have all the fat stores, it can affect proper flow of, you have a lot more you have to push oxygen through, and I guess it would use up more of your iron. So I guess I could see that as well. It says adolescent girls are also higher risk of iron deficiency because their bodies lose iron during menstruation. That I did not know. That would make sense of why I get I used to, like, during menstrual, now that I'm on an iron supplement, I'm taking iron and fortified foods, I'm not having the problem, but when I was younger, before pregnancy, I used to have problems during menstruation. I would get so lightheaded, I would almost pass out, and I would have to sleep the entire first day of menstruation. And then the rest of the week, I was usually really tired. I was having a hard time focusing. That totally makes sense now. So if you're just discovering that with me, there's something to keep in mind for the future. So signs and symptoms of iron deficiency in children would be things like pale skin, fatigue, cold hands and feet. Both my children have always had cold hands and feet. That was something I very much noticed. But their bodies, they would be sweating, but their hands and feet would be cold. So that was something that was a bit important that I discovered earlier on with them. Slow growth and development, poor appetite, abnormally rapid breathing, behavior problems. Pay attention to this, you guys. Behavioral problems. We have had some major issues with our son over here with a host of things, which I'll get into in a moment. Frequent infections, unusual cravings for non-nutritive substances such as ice, dirt, paint, or starch, which I am a chronic ice chewer. I am struggling to break that habit. Even with taking extra iron, I struggle to absorb it. So I think they get into it later, but Iron 101. Vitamin C is vital to absorbing iron. So if you're taking iron supplements or you're low in iron, you need to be getting vitamin C and taking them together. So with my son, I'm going to add another symptom in here. And the other symptom is sleep problems. My son has dealt with sleep problems since birth. He has struggled so bad. He's had the cold hands and feet. He's had poor appetite problems. He's had behavioral problems. And while we did come up with a probable diagnosis of very, very mild or high-functioning autism, these things can be separate as well. And it hasn't been until recently that I was like, okay, until we can get in to actually get him as help for autism, let's find out if there's anything else contributing to what he's dealing with. And so we went out and we got a blood test to check for vitamin levels, just make sure he's getting enough, because he was pounding these meal replacement bars, but like the only thing we could get him to eat, and he would eat like 6 of them a day, y'all. 6 meal replacement bars a day, and he would still be hungry. And we were getting really kind of concerned because he went from eating he used to eat really well. He's not been a very picky eater. He always loved broccoli and fruits and vegetables. And then he just got to a point, I gotta turn my heater off here. And then he just got to a point where he just wouldn't eat the foods he normally would eat. And then all he would touch is these meal replacement bars. And we were kind of freaking out a little bit because it's like, this can't be healthy, that he's just eating this. So we got his blood drawn and kind of find out his iron was low. It was actually quite low. And so they wanted us to put him on an iron supplement. And already I was a little bit hesitant just because iron supplements, if you absolutely are really, really low and you just need to get your iron pumped up right away, do your iron supplements. Anything that I say in here is in no way replacing a doctor's or a medical professional opinion, diagnosis, or prescription. So I'm just sharing kind of what I've gone through and what I've researched on my own. But iron supplements, they can cause constipation, so you have to be careful with that. And they are, iron is kind of an attractive thing for viruses. They kind of feed off of iron and attract iron. So the main thing is with supplements is they don't contain the fiber that you would get if you were taking it naturally through foods that are rich in iron. And like plants that are iron rich, they contain their own substance that counters viral infections. So it's just anything across the board with supplements or vitamins, any nutritionist will tell you if you can get it naturally, it is 20 times better than if you have to take it via a supplement. So he was just sleeping so rough. He was waking up in absolute heart-wrenching night terrors 5, 6, 7 times a night, and we exhausted everything trying to figure out. We even did a sleep study and they couldn't find anything, and we were exhausted. And I know I've seen other moms talking about this and nobody seemed to have an answer. And then finally I was compiling some of my research that I've been doing, and it just was like putting one of those puzzles, you line the papers up and you turn them just right, and all of a sudden it just creates this whole picture, and it's like, whoa. So I've already known this for a fact with myself. With low iron, you have a tendency towards what's called restless leg syndrome. And I know that doesn't sound like it would be a cause of sleep issues, but let me tell you from experience, restless leg syndrome is enough to freak you out middle of the night. I can't even explain. It's this spine-tingling, full-body need to move suddenly, and it's like even the movements aren't feeling it. I can't even, it's the weirdest feeling, but I know I've woken up middle of the night in just freakouts before as well. So I don't know why I didn't connect the two with my son, but yeah, so sleep problems, if you are having major sleep problems, seriously look into low iron and see if your child has low iron, because now that we've gotten his iron starting to come back up, he's actually starting to sleep. He is taking naps again. And he's sleeping mostly through the night. He still will night wake a little bit and come try to get in bed with us. And then my husband will escort him back to bed and lay in bed with him. But we're only getting 1, maybe 2 night wakings at night, and they're really quiet, mild. And it went from hours trying to calm him back down from one of these wake ups sometimes. And so keep that in mind. So I've digressed a lot. All right, so how can iron deficiency in children be prevented? We'll just kind of run through this real quick. Full-term infants, start giving your baby an iron supplement at age 4 months. Continue giving your baby the supplement until he or she is eating 2 or more servings a day of iron-rich foods. Personally, I would disagree with this one, mainly because if you are getting enough iron, your baby should not need an iron supplement. I mean, this is assuming breastfeeding. I apologize that I'm assuming. I only have experience with breastfeeding. I've never done formula, so I kind of automatically tend to speak from the breastfeeding aspect. But if you're doing formula, you should not have to worry about that. I believe it even full-term infants. I don't know why it's telling you to do a supplement at 4 months. If you're feeding formula, so further down I answered that. If you breastfeed and give your baby iron fortified formula, and the majority of your baby's feedings are iron fortified formula, stop giving your baby supplements, or don't give it at all if you started out with formula. So if you're breastfeeding and you are getting enough of your own iron, then you should be passing on enough. I think mainly where this comes from, where they're telling us to give all these supplements to our children, is people are outdoors less and less, so we're not getting as much vitamin D, which is making us prone to being low immune system and getting sick easier. We're also not out eating our balanced foods like we should. There's boxed meals, and I am guilty. I pound peanut butter and jellies when I am just too tired to make anything, and I need to stop doing that. But we need to be getting more balanced meals. Most people do not get a balanced meal. They're not getting enough nutrients, vitamins, and it is causing problems, and that's why I think they're starting to recommend that we supplement a lot. All right, premature infants. Start giving your baby an iron supplement at age 2 weeks. I have never had a preemie, so I can't really speak to this one. I would think if you are getting yourself enough iron, I would assume, unless the baby has a major low iron problem, I would assume you can just keep breastfeeding and not have to give it. But I can't speak to that because I haven't really studied much on preemies. But for a full-term infant, unless there's a major reason why the doctor's like, you absolutely must, I don't see that there's a need to. If you are getting enough iron, and I didn't realize I wasn't, and that's where my son's problem came in. Our daughter's not having the same problems that our son did, I think because once I discovered I was low iron, which was while I was pregnant with her still, I started downing iron supplements like no tomorrow. So I did iron supplements until I got myself mostly caught back up, and then I got off the supplements and replaced it with foods fortified in iron. And I have to take a little bit more than most people to keep it up. So let's see. Other steps you can take to prevent iron deficiency. Serve iron-rich foods. That one should be an extremely obvious one. Foods are the best, most natural way to get your iron, and it's easier to absorb it. So when you begin serving your baby solids, typically between ages 4 and 6 months, again, I do not agree with this. I think between 6 months and a year is more realistic of what is safe really for babies. I mean, you can do more. Hundreds of babies have been fed solids before then, but I don't agree that it's healthier for them. So, you know, whenever you decide that you're ready to starting solids, okay, is what I guess I'm going to reword this to. I personally waited till 7-8 months with both my kids before I even started, and I did baby-led weaning, which was more of the solid foods, not so much pureed. And I started out with, I think his first food, both the baby's first foods was broccoli. It wasn't exactly iron. I think broccoli is high in vitamin C, but still, vitamin C and vitamin iron kind of need to go hand in hand. So your baby's first food, if you wanted to kind of mash up, cook and mash up some spinach. Spinach is like one of the highest iron fortified foods that is like in existence. So spinach and broccoli, if you wanted to throw those two together and kind of mix them together, spinach doesn't really have a taste when you've mixed it with something else. So I didn't even know, I didn't think to do this back then, but you know, just mix those two together and just mash them up into a mash if you want to, and that would be perfect for a baby to start with. And they're getting plenty of iron, vitamin C. Let's see. Don't overdo milk. Obviously not breast milk. Between ages 1 and 5, don't allow your child to drink more than 24 ounces of milk a day. Again, I find this interesting that the more milk, non-breast milk, non-human milk that we drink, it seems like it really speaks to having a high risk of iron deficiencies. Very interesting. All right, here, there's Sarah right here. Enhancing absorption. Oh, hate that word. Vitamin C helps promote the absorption of dietary iron. You can help your child absorb iron by offering foods rich in vitamin C, such as citrus fruits, cantaloupe, strawberries, bell peppers, tomatoes, and dark green vegetables. Dark green vegetables, we're not talking iceberg lettuce here, guys, or even romaine lettuce. We are talking like kale and spinach. Those are really some of the top ones. And again, spinach, I never thought spinach was very good. I always hated spinach, but you can fix spinach up in so many different ways, and you don't even know it's there, and it's so easy. And I was always nervous to try to tamper with cooking with it, because I was just like, oh, I hate the taste of spinach. But now that I've actually started tampering with it, it's like, oh, wow, this is super easy. I should have just started doing this a long time ago. And you don't even know it's there, really. So, should I have my child screened for iron deficiency? That is a question you should ask yourself. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends all infants be tested for iron deficiency and anemia starting between ages 9 months and 12 months. And for those who have risk factors, blah, blah, blah. So I made the mistake of, I was trying to feel out my natural mindedness, and I opted out of the iron blood draw at 9 to 12 months with our son. I had just gotten into some topics, learning about some of the different tests and stuff like that, and I was just like, I just don't want anything to do with that. I don't want to deal with the blood draws. You know, what are they going to do with the blood? And the reality is, to a point, I'm still kind of feel that way. I do not want people having my child's blood. I don't, unless they're going to absolutely dispose it, and I can guarantee they're going to dispose of it when it's done. I personally am not someone who just wants someone having my child's DNA hanging out there. So that was part of my issue, but I really should have done the iron check. I didn't realize how important iron is, and a lot of our son's problems, though there are other things that are going on, such as him having mild high-functioning autism, that is going on as well. This was exacerbating, the issues, and making it so much worse and causing other issues that it's taken us almost 3 years to figure out that low iron was responsible. And I had looked up low iron before. This is the thing, and it doesn't even mention it in here, is the sleep problems, because my son was not showing these other symptoms. Pale skin, he didn't have pale skin. He was never fatigued. Cold hands and feet, but other things can cause that. Slow growth. He never had slow growth or development. Poor appetite didn't develop till later. I mean, he was always on the breast when he was a baby, so that I wouldn't have considered that poor appetite. Had no problems with rapid breathing problems or abnormal breathing. His behavioral problems didn't start till later anyway. He's never had infections, and he's never really had cravings. So most of those symptoms he still does not have. And I had looked this up before, and the sleep problem that should have been mentioned, because the sleep was our biggest issue that led us to even looking into this. And then the behavioral problems we had chalked up to the fact that he's probable diagnosis of autism, which we're going to be confirming that here when he turns 3. We're going in for another appointment to confirm that that's what's going on. So we're taking steps to try to eliminate anything that is not, that we can, any of the behavioral issues that we can, so that we can get it down to the bare bones and find out what's actually something that is probably autism and what's more or less like an iron deficiency. So with this, there's a lot of things you can do naturally. Again, if you are being prescribed an iron supplement, this is not to replace what your doctor's telling you to do. I started out with my iron supplement, and I know a lot of kids do not like iron supplements, so I never started Asher on any supplements. I was going to, and I couldn't get him to stomach it. And he was used to having droppers of stuff all the time from infancy. He had colic and reflux, and I was droppering charcoal water and grape water, and we were doing all kinds of stuff. So he was used to taking stuff from a dropper and then immediately after getting a reward of something that he liked. Once he weaned, we switched to breast milk. When he would get his supplements and stuff, he would get breast milk immediately after, which was a kind of a fun treat for him. Or more recently, we've done juice. He only gets juice once a week, which is something I really recommend, is that you pick a day a week that's kind of a fun day for fun foods, and you try to keep it to only that. So he gets juice on Saturdays, unless he's getting his supplements, and when he gets his supplements, he only gets a few sips, and that's it. So, and that just kind of makes it kind of worth taking a supplement. But even with that, the iron supplement, it was not staying down well for him. He was struggling with keeping it down and not having his stomach really upset. So I jumped right to getting spinach and trying to naturally pump it in. And I can do this in another video later. I'll show you in one of my next videos how we get iron to fix our iron deficiency problems. We generally do kind of a fruit smoothie and put everything we need into that. So one of these videos, I'll show you my process for making our fruit smoothies and what makes it fun and healthy and safe and all that. So if you have any comments, or if I've forgotten something, feel free to comment below, like, subscribe, and while you're at it, share with me if you have any iron deficiencies or your children have iron deficiencies, what you've seen for some of the symptoms and severities. See you in the next video.